So, happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Yuletide. There is also an Afrikaans holiday at this time of year that I can't pronounce, and I'm not even going to try to because that would be insulting. There's a Japanese one, so happy holidays to all of you celebrating a holiday at this time of year. We are, well, I'm in a Christmas jumper. He isn't, but we didn't communicate.
It's red, it counts.
It's red, it counts. We just thought it would be a bit of a fun idea to share with you, just nonsense conversations really that we had throughout beta in the run up to 3.5 of going, ooh, why does it have to be like this? Why can't we do it like this? Yeah. And we just started to compile it because this is like the sort of shit that we enjoy, really. And we thought it would be fun to share with you what's going on inside our brain boxes. A couple of caveats before we start. We like 3.5. This isn't slagging off the state of the game whatsoever. Please don't get confused by that. This is just us really having a muck around and enjoying it. Yep. One of the other things is we actually started this, like, what if we did it list in beta. And since then, what's the name for it? The rules generator on the calculator has come out. So you might see these rules and go, hey, you could actually do that. And on a couple of instances, I have, just so we can like show what it might look like. It's a bit wordy and choppy and needs refining, but hey, It's a bit of fun. But there is every possibility that we go through some of these and you go, hey, why don't you do it? And you know what? It's Christmas. I'm going to have a few days off. I might make one of these armies at some point, but it'll be interesting to know what you all think. We love having these sorts of game design chats. For those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, we get Tano on. We're planning on getting on again soon. We really enjoy this aspect of talking about OPR game design. We're not just knuckleheads who like to go to events. And so we hope you do too. So let's just get into it. Now, Harvey, when we were discussing this from a point of view of starting the video, you were pretty clear of saying we need to do this properly if we're going to, put this out to the world. And so we need to set some design principles. Yep. So start to talk us through what we are taking as the structure to this.
Yeah, so when I started this document, I wanted to pull back some of the things that Tano had been saying during the beta process and mirror them, and then just really put them at the top of the document so we'd keep them in mind as we were going through and designing stuff. So the first one, which I think is basically a core OPR design principle, is simple. It's a huge thing about the game. It needs to be easy to pick up. It needs to be not too complicated, not too wordy, that kind of stuff. So most important of all these design principles is simple. Yeah. Then we got reduced tokens. This is something that Tano kind of parroted a couple of times throughout the beta. He didn't really like all the token tracking. We probably have more tokens than the existing 3.5 in these design things. But we tried to keep them kind of like big picture stuff. So you pick something and it stays for the game instead of like things flip-flopping around and stuff. But yeah, reduced tokens overall. No rerolls. This is one that, I mean, I'm not sure I actually agree with this, but it is a PR design principle. The only reroll in the game is Bane and Lacerate at the moment, and he doesn't really like the rerolls, so we try to keep those gone. Because it's very easy to very quickly design a lot of new stuff with just by adding the word reroll to things, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Reroll attack, reroll defense. Okay, that's two new mechanics instead of Furious or whatever. Thematic. Yeah, so we went through all the different army laws. We often joke about being the lore channel. We still not the lore channel, but we did actually go through the lore for these and pull back a few key words and stuff, things like themes that we wanted to base these ideas on. Because I think very early on in the beta, or before the beta came out, it was being branded as the Refluffening, and then it kind of got changed to more like just 3.5 army update. And we really love the idea of like a fluffening, right? We really like the idea of like making these armies feel like armies. Yeah. So
even early beta days, we were doing our little review of the proposed rules and giving it a game strength and a fluff rating.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we love that aspect of it. There's some good fluff, I think, in here.
Yeah. Another one of our key principles was make sure that the game is accessible by other war game players. So don't turn OPR into something that's so distant from stuff like Warhammer that if someone went to go pick it up, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't like this. This is too distant," right? Yeah. So nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too wacky. We wanted to try and get 3 things down per army, but we're not trying to force it. One of the slight criticisms we have actually of 3.5 is that every army got the same treatment. And so some of them felt slightly more forced than other ones. And I think that's kind of a sentiment shared by a couple of the players, at least in the UK Discord. So for this, we thought, let's try for 3 things. If we don't get to 3 things, that's fine. And if we have 4 things, that's also fine, right? Like do the amount we want to do to make the army feel thematic. And then there was flat damage buffs that had to be used sparingly. So when we started this document, it was early in the beta, and it was back when basically every game was finishing start of round 3 because of the mad amount of damage buffs that were in the game. We're still in a very, very lethal phase for the game, I think, compared to the previous patch. But yeah, we tried to avoid just giving flat damage buffs to things. Now, there obviously are some flat damage buffs here. Like, at the end of the day, we're not going to cut off half the design space. But yeah, it was one we wanted to be a little bit careful about. And then finally, considerations. Army-wide rules are not enforced in this. So that's one of the big departures from the current state of the game. We don't have army-wide rules. Some of them might have army-wide rules, but more we focus on kind of like new rules that are thematic to the army. So in the Don't Think Just Charge world, you would have some units that didn't change from 3.4 to 3.5, but the army overall would. And then casters are not touched. We decided we weren't going to go and rebuild the casting lists in the same way that Tano did. That was kind of too much out of scope for this document. Yeah. So you can imagine that the casters are either in 3.5 world or in 3.4 world. It doesn't really make a difference to the design decisions we've made. We're kind of happy with casting at both power levels. So, you know.
I do realise that we've said casters not touched, but we kind of do, because we also introduce a new mechanic around caster at one point.
There are some things about casters, but the actual spells, I guess, it's not the caster.
Yeah, the spells and the whole system is very much the same. Yeah. We then also thought, let's just, because we were discussing a lot about what new mechanics there are, so we thought it'd be good just to give some headlines on these.
Yep.
The first one is spatial auras, and again, this is something that you can now do in the calculator, in the rules generator, which is when you are within X inches of this model or this unit, you get a rule. And you'll see, those of you already scanning down the page, you'll see that's one of the things we've done with Alien Hives Heroes. The idea of just placing down markers and they do things. We'll explain a bit more about that as we get into, I think the Dwarves is the first one we talk about that. And then totems, which again, is a new and unique idea, not dissimilar to placing markers and markers and using objectives, but it's where you put something down. It doesn't, we're unsure about how to pitch this. There's one of two ways of doing it that we'll come on to, but either you put something down, it doesn't have its own activation but does static things, or a whole new unit that you could spawn or build your list with that has its own activation. It's sort of thing that totems is one that we're like 80% on the first half, 20% on the second, but it's the sort of thing just to discuss for a bit of fluffy fun. So let's start with the armies. All right, so the Alien Hives. You kick us off, Harvey. This is one that you launched into, I think, the strongest.
Yeah, so I actually did these in alphabetical order. So if the ideas get better towards the end, then you can blame entirely that. Or if they get more and more tenuous, then you can blame on that as well. So Alien Hives. So I had us roll through the lore for Alien Hives, and we've written a little goals section for each of the lists here. Because we wanted to really pull out what we were trying to do with the changes. So for Alien Hives, I've written highlight the cast system, bioweapons, and abundant psychic powers. It's one of the things it calls out, right? Like there is this clear cast system, and the psychic powers are everywhere, and they also have bioweapons. So I was like, okay, well, let's quickly throw together some rules that kind of describe that. In the current 3.5, Alien Hives got just +1 to morale checks. So one thing I really liked when we saw that initially was, okay, what if we gave that to just heroes? Right, you already have this kind of caste system, so like these elite aliens should give morale to lower ones. And originally the idea was like, okay, well, let's assign castes to these things, and higher castes give morale to lower castes and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, I was like, you know what, we have a hero keyword, let's just use that. Yeah. So heroes give +1 morale checks to other units within 18 inches. And which heroes these are on? I mean, at the time, I don't think the Grunt existed. Probably leave it off that one. It's too kind of low down in the cast system, but like the more elite ones, like the Snatchers and the Hive Lord, can give this +1 out. So this is the first like, okay, well this shows off the cast system, and it also kind of shows up the psychic powers thing, right? They're linked to each other through psychic powers. Then this one is kind of something they already have. So bioweapons. I really like the current Alien Hives thing. One of the strengths of them is they have this mad flexibility. Basically, every unit in the army has access to the same kind of 4 upgrades, which is like an AP one, a rending one. I think there's sometimes a poison one, a deadly one, a blast one, or whatever. I don't think the poison one's on everything. But yeah, if you click on just grunts, you've seen it a couple of times already. But assault grunts. Yep. Yeah, there we go.
The deadly blast rending.
Deadly
AP4.
blast rending AP4, right. So I really like the idea of that. And so I thought, why don't we do that for as their army wide, right? So like let's give every single unit in the army this flexibility. And let's come up with a couple of new ones, right? Like I think Venom Whips is one that isn't spread across the whole list, but it'd be cool to see Reliable Bane across the list. And basically give them a bunch of weapons that you obviously see elsewhere. This is OPR. There aren't that many options. But the key thing is that every unit gets it, right? So every unit has access to, all the melee ones get access to all the melee versions of it, all the range units get access to the range versions of it, and then you can have this real like Build-A-Bear style play style that represents this kind of weird alien race where they just like evolve stuff when needed. There was a time where I was going to make it like a once per game thing, where once per game you could just like evolve. Like it's basically like a limited weapon, right? You like evolve one of these weapons and then you get to use it for that attack. But that got knocked away by the simplicity thing.
Yeah.
And then finally, give casters the ability to cast as if they were in the space of any unit within 18 inches. This is actually a thing. This is Spell Conduit. I think Spell Conduit also gives a +1 to the spell rolls. But I think, that ability to cast through other things plays into the kind of psychic powers of the alien hives. And they're supposed to be like heavily psychic race, so it encourages you to take casters as well. One thing we didn't shy away from with these reworks as well is making it so that you don't need to, like, we're not scared of pushing someone towards a play style, right? Like, not every list needs to be like, you can do whatever you want with this stuff. So giving these buffs like casters can cast through things, you put that on your casters and say you can cast through any within 18 inches, and it kind of incentivizes you to take casters in a way that feels very fitting for the army.
Yeah, that aspect of not shying away from forcing playstyles, I think it appears like a very strong thing to say, but it is quite subtle because you're not rejecting, you're not saying if you don't do this, you're doing worse. It's more just saying if you lean into the slide, you get to do more fun things. I think that's something that's pretty important in OPR to say that it can be done. Because it is a flexibility and an all-comers game. It's not the likes of 40k of saying, well, you're going to spend 500 quid on one army, so if you don't like it, then tough. You do have a lot more flexibility and versatility with it. So I that's one of the points I do feel that it's actually quite a good step to take in a design process of encouraging leaning into the slide a bit. And that's what it is. So, pardon me. So I went into the new rules generator. You will have seen, as I was just clicking around my tabs, a little glimpse of what it looks like. If you don't know what it looks like and you're not a Patreon, it's a $5 a month. Just go and do it. Really worth your time. If anything, if you like this aspect of OPR, just to go and lift the curtain, look behind the curtain and lift the veil, those are the ones, and see what is the game is built from. It's really interesting. But what you can make now with this new rules gen is this style of rule. So with the AH one, it's very easy to say, whilst this model is within, I mean, it's a rules gen, so there's a bit of English language fudging here, but whilst this model is within 18 inches of a friendly unit, that unit gets +1 to morale rolls. You can do that. And then I'm sure there is a better way of doing it, but I fudged it as best as I could, really. You could also do that caster rule. I did it 12 inches here, but you can change the range of saying that casters... Again, the English has come out a bit fuddy here, but whilst this model's within 18 inches of a friendly unit, that unit gets Spell Conduit. So that's you can cast from this model's location, and you get +1 to casting rolls on it. Sorry, I have done it at 18 inches, but Spell Conduit is a 12-inch rule. That's what's happened here. Yeah. So it's not perfect for what we're describing here, but there are ways of doing these cool...
Just make that rule 12 inches, and then you've got a rule that works,
But it's a really cool system. I liked this when Harvey put it forward. It did emphasize at the time heroes as a powerhouse because you've got the Hive Lord who's a caster. You did have the Synapse Tyrant who was a hero caster. I like it even more now that the Synapse Tyrant is not a hero as well, because you get the cast system. You get these ranks of alien hives. And some of them are locked behind the hero keyword, but not all of them. You've got the rest in the list. It would just mean that you've got that feel of having some bigger, more important, more cohesive units in your army while everyone else is running around causing chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like it. Moving on to the Battle Brothers, all the way through beta, we really liked, I think we were parroting actually something Tano said, which is have this be a core intro army for everyone, make it a generalist faction, focus on the theme of them being these fearless super soldiers. They've got to focus on tactical mastery, but then keep it simple. And yeah, this is the intro faction. This is the one where you say to a friend, hey, come and try out a war game. I don't know about war games. Well, how about a super soldier? Think of Spartans, think of the 300. Yeah, that sounds cool. You get them into this. So the changes we'd make to what is on live right now is we'd actually bring back what was steadfast in the beta process, which is that the unit can't be routed in melee.
Yep.
Really good way of boxing off an important point of damage distribution in OPR when someone fails that melee check. But also, it's not game breaking. In Grimdark Future, there's a lot more shooting. I think it's just a good one to have.
Yeah.
We like the idea of each sub-faction having its own unique army-wide. You can use what's existing there at the moment with the slight change that we'd say that Dark Brothers now have got the versatility to shooting and charging.
Yeah.
We'd give them something else, and we'd give that versatility rule to the vanilla Battle Brothers.
Yeah, I think at time of writing, Dark still had their 6-up.
Did they still have their 6-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the important thing is we couldn't give double morale to something. Obviously, base Battle Brothers have like the steadfast rule, but we want the whole faction to have that now. So you need to pull that back to something else. But you could give 6-up back to Dark, and you could give the shooting charge rain thing to vanilla.
Yeah. And then the other one is giving heroes command point upgrades, which is a pool of points or markers or something that you can spend to modify a dice and just make it +1 to hit. You do this, of course, before rolling. I think we discussed taking this away from casting rolls, saying that you can't do it there because that is incredibly powerful. Yeah. It's effectively just more caster tokens into the pool. But this was kind of derived from what was the original Demons rule, I think, where they had a pool of points based on the number of units that you got, and you loved that mechanic. You thought that was great. And so, yeah, giving it on heroes instead, making it a strategic deployment that you can then say, hey, this dice roll is really important. I'm going to give all of these, or give one of these dice, +1 to hit by spending these points before doing it.
Yeah, and it could be its own upgrade away from all the other hero upgrades, and it's just one of those ones little arrow. So you could be like, okay, you get up to 5 of these things. Tactical mastery 1. I want to do it 5 times. That's going to cost me 100 points, whatever it is.
Like spotting lasers that we see in Spotters and Dow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can just buy up to a certain number of them. I don't know how much they probably wouldn't cost 20 points, but I really like the idea of just having commanders feel like commanders, like leading the way and making tactical decisions and stuff. And I think that's kind of the style of we read from a lot of the Battle Brothers lore. So I think maybe simple is the wrong word to describe the Battle Brothers changes, but I think forgiving is perhaps a better word for it. So bonuses to rolls, a little bit extra shooting and charging range, so positioning doesn't quite matter as much, and then the routing thing means if you do get caught in a melee, it's going to be less disastrous for you. So more of you kind of playing the game without getting suddenly wiped off the board. So that was the kind of style for the Battle Brothers.
Take us through the Sisters.
So when I was reading through the Sisters changes, obviously they've got new flamers, which are Purge now instead of the old AP1 ones. The big thing about Sisters is obviously it's a flamer faction, right? It's always been a flamer faction, and people love the flamers.
They have Sisters, a flamer APC.
Yeah, so this is the flamer faction, purging heretics with fire and resisting casters is kind of their vibe. Devout, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You could leave the current version of it, but really when we wrote this was talking about OG Sisters, the 12-inch one, within 12 inches. Obviously, in our version of the game, you don't have all the army wides, so you can leave it as the 12-inch one, and it can be one of the unique things about it. Special flamers, so bring back the AP1 on the flamers and give them a bonus within 6 inches. They ignore regen and modifiers, so that's basically unstoppable. I don't know if unstoppable still is all that, but whatever it is, basically saying like we've got flamers, they're good within 12, they're especially good within 6, right? Like we're like a danger close, get in your grill kind of faction, and flamers are a huge part of that identity. And then finally, anti-caster. So this is anti-casting auras. So we kind of talked about these persistent effects at the start of the document. This is, you put it on units. Yeah, so any cast within 18 inches gets -1 to casting rolls. And you can put that on the fanatics and stuff like that. So you've got this kind of front line that debuffs their casters as you move forwards. And you've got your flamers that come out of your APCs and your shrines and stuff like that. But really, really doubled down on Sisters as a close range faction, which the old Devout did in a really nice way.
Yeah. A close range shooting faction as well. You do get the fanatics who are YOLOing into melee, but the ability to get up and show someone the inside of a barrel really, really nice theme for the sisters to have there, and it shows in the mini range that we've got for them as well.
Yeah.
Lovely. Let's move on. We didn't stage this that I'm doing the Custodians, but here we are. Custodians. Custodians being the elite army. It's very hard, I think, in a design space as well, to have a unit like the Battle Brothers and the Prime Brothers, who are these elite, fearless superheroes, and then have a more elite one.
Have an elite.
And then also, exactly. And then also have Titan Lords in the same mix. It's quite tough to make them feel distinct and not just somewhere in the middle. But trying to really reinforce that. They are the guards of the conduit. This should be a, proper now, capital C. The guards of the conduit in the lore, so they should be unmoving. So do away with this current -1 AP over 9 inches thing, and just give it that they can have the AP 1 heavy shield back to a per unit upgrade. You want then to give your sister heroes upgrades so that they can join the brothers. For that, that's got to be the fearless thing, because at the moment your sisters, what's she called, a great sister? Your great sister can't join any of your fearless units without them losing it. And that is just horrendous because you lose such a core identity to the army. Morale also taking from Battle Brothers this can't be routed thing. It's okay to share some rules around as well. It's important. Not everyone has to have every rule being unique. You can have some sharing. Fearless, for example, is one. So we think that's an okay one to have here. And then the combination of the heavy shield, and that means you've got really resistant guys. And then advanced tactics, RIP, that rule. Let's bring something back similar. Love this one. This was one that, again, we discussed quite at length, and I love where we've ended with this. The idea that at the start of each battle round, you can move half your units up to 3 inches. And this, you'd play test it, and it might be crap at 3 inches and decent at 6 or too strong or something. But just the idea that at the beginning of the round, you assess the board and go, right, strategically, I need to move these guys this way or this way or this way. And you redeploy kind of half of your army a little bit. It can have a big impact. Just really nice strategic idea of an elite, resilient army that can move around the board very freely. I love it. I think that I was very happy with that. And as well, that is a very simple design, I felt. So yeah, Custodians, I look at this and I get really excited and I think, let's design this. But that bottom rule, I don't know how you'd do that in the rules generator. That is one of the rules, I think, on this page. One of the few that we have that you can't do at the moment. And we need someone else to do.
Which is interesting because actually the taking a double turn thing has a similar rider where you can only do it on half of the units per round.
Okay. I'd have to go and dig a bit
I don't know how that, I don't know if that's been built with the rules generator or not. But yeah, either way, there are rules like this that exist in the game, but this obviously is the non-limited version of that. But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Take us through the DAO. I think we actually have a little bit of something that did get changed, which is this one at the bottom, but we can mention that later. Harvey, take us through DAO.
Yeah, so make a mobile ranged army reliant on tech, clearing gameplay. So I think Tano said at some point during the beta, which I really liked, these are normal dudes with good tech. So, like people, there's some complaints around morale and stuff like that, but I quite like the idea of them being like relatively weak quality, but their gear makes up for it. And yeah, the DAO unit is a coalition of aliens equipped with advanced weapons and drones. Their armies rely on advanced range weaponry and mobility to keep enemies at bay. I think that might even be a quote straight from the lore, but that's basically what that is. So yeah, we really like spotting lasers. We think that's a kind of core identity for them. We kind of like the interplay of that. So make them a 3+. This is a thing that this was before they got the cost nerf. I think you could probably take them back up to where they were, the cost buff even, but make them a 3+. We just like the reliability of it, right? 3+ feels a lot better than 4+. And because it's like a key part of their army, it's okay them having the best version of it. Gun drone upgrades. So we really like the DAO. They basically already had like cool army stuff, which is the drone upgrades for a lot of units. So we thought, give those things, right? Give everyone cool gun drone upgrades, but also add 2 more in just to add to a bit more to the interesting decisions about it. So we came up with 2 of them. So
this is our 2 separate drone units ideas.
Right? Yeah. So these are drones that if you start the turn within 6 inches of them and do stuff, then you get bonuses from them. So you kind of want to intersperse drones amongst your front ranks to do stuff. So yeah, haywire drones, which are if you shoot within 6 inches of them, then they also shoot at your target.
Yeah, they join in.
But only hit on unmodified 6. So it's kind of like a cool way of reactivating this drone unit to keep shooting. And it kind of gives an interesting tactical decision for your opponent. Do they shoot the drones, which is adding lots of small incremental value, or do they wipe out the units that are triggering them? So on. And then booster drones, which just lets them move further. So, you start near it, you can move a bit further forwards before you do your shooting. Once again, kind of like a bit like the kind of aura things we were talking about. But this time tied to a unit, really, which is cool. We kept TV as well. So what's that called? Tactical visor? Targeting visor, yeah. So over 9 inches, you're getting +1 to hit. I think that's very, very classic DAO. That feels very, very right for them to have punished by being too close, but does well at range. That feels good. And then give hit and run aura to battle seat loots. This was before that was implemented in the...
Yeah, that did get implemented eventually. So we can kill that. But it was something I agree. I really like the decision for that to be put in for Battlesuit Elites and not put in for the, what's it called, a Grunt Elite or something, the non-Battlesuit hero. Because on the non-Battlesuit hero, it opens up your accessibility to that rule quite a lot on a shooting heavy army. On the Battlesuit Elite, it's already an expensive hero, so it's not too oppressive. Very happy to have seen that put in at the end of the beta. But I really like this as well. It's just more subtle changes that will encourage you into a certain play style, not taking anything away in particular, but just helping drive that theme forward of tech reliance alien dudes. But they are just dudes. We're not going for fearless and any of that stuff.
And honestly, like on reading this as well, I think probably an even better change for the spotting lasers would just be to bring them to a 2-up and make them so you take less per unit. I think one of the biggest problems with spotting lasers is the swinginess at the moment.
I was going to say...
You take 2, sometimes you get 2, sometimes you get none. Just having maybe 1 spotting laser upgrade per unit and just making it a 2-up.
I'm actually more in favour of removing it as an optional upgrade for battlesuits and heroes, and probably security grunts as well, and just having it on the, what are they called, the tactical grunts and the spotting units themselves.
Yeah.
Because then those units as well are the ones that have access to this unique thing. And if you want it, you need to take those units. And they're already pretty decent units as it goes. But just having it that anyone and their uncle can take it, it kind of diminishes how special it feels.
Yeah.
And so I'm much more in favour of having it in limited spaces, but better accessibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think there's also some stuff to be said about just the army in general and how some units need to be a bit more interesting, which I think we'd probably end up writing a full-page document on. Stuff like battlesuits just feel quite bad compared to other units, and stealth suits even sometimes as well. I think there's just space for reworking some of the things.
We're going to stop doing the back and forth because Dark Elf Raiders are something you're very passionate about, Harv, so I want you to take us through this one.
Yeah, so the Dark Elf Raiders, obviously this is one of my favorite armies. I think the playstyle is really cool. The goals were fast and fragile with reliance on transports because they are raiders, and use of neurotoxins. This is one of the things that was pulled out from the lore, and also just add a place for shooting in the army. The position it's in right now is kind of a bit like there's not really enough good shooting. What do we add? So raider transports. So this would be a buff to all the transports they have. It removes the 6-inch restriction, potentially increasing it to 9 inches. I don't know where balance sits on these things, but make all transports as well are fast with a very fast upgrade. That is actually where they ended up at the end of the beta anyway. Mm-hmm. This was written back when they only had fast. Remove that restriction. The whole point is they're going bundling out of transports.
For clarity, that restriction is the restriction of when a unit departs from the transport, it cannot leave the 6-inch bubble around it. Just either removing that or putting it up to 9 so that the units can come out into a more versatile strategic deployment when charging, when shooting, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I understand why the restriction is there for most transports. You don't want the game to become run up the board, threaten everything immediately. But that feels like the identity of Dark Elf Raiders. So, once again, give them that playstyle, right? Not every army needs to have that playstyle, but this is an interesting way of making their transport slightly better. Neurotoxins. So this is something I did for just the melee weapons. So I don't know if this needs to be on the Gene Brutes and stuff like that. I think you'd probably just leave it on the actual Dark Elf units. Which I guess are Gene Brutes Dark Elves. I presume they are. They're just gene things, but either way, the core Dark Elf ones, like witches and stuff.
Warriors, witches, elites.
Yeah. So units who take wounds from melee weapons have negative to hit back and morale. So -1 to hit, -1 morale whenever you attack things in melee. So this kind of adds to that kind of relatively glass cannon-y playstyle. So
Yeah.
you're only getting your defensive bonus when you're actually hitting stuff, which is interesting. And then they also get minus morale. So you have this kind of like plowing through them thing going on. But when you're under fire, you're going to die. And then, so harassing, just left that on the range units. Give the range units something truly unique to them. Give them that kind of shooting behind things playstyle. I think also this would also need to come with a slight weapon rework for Dark Elf Raiders, give them a bit more AP on their shooting units, but that's kind of out of the scope of what we were going for here.
Yeah, this is a bit more just high level at the moment. I'm sure that if you left us alone with the weapon options for many units, many armies, there'd be a lot of changes that would just take us way too long to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that. But in particular, I really like this being one of the first examples of taking the army-wide rule and giving it to certain units, not all. I think that's such an easy way of delivering the theme on certain units, having a niche within an army. And I think that's a lovely little suggestion for the Dark Elf Raiders. Let's have a look at the short Angries, the Dwarf Guilds. I've already set myself up a bit there, that the Dwarf Guilds aren't necessarily just short Angries. They have an identity in the lore as roaming space miners that understand when to pull back, but at the same time can still be quite driven by greed. So Harvey, this was actually one of your design points here of putting it on heroes. We've talked about this, and we talked about it, I think, with Jackals. Maybe not. We'll come on to that later. But this is the idea that you have a unit that can put down a marker on the battlefield that gives something. So here it's the idea of putting down a ritual marker. Units within 6 inches of that marker get +1 to defense, and you can put it on objectives. So it means that your dwarves get to an objective, you have a hero that makes it more important, more valuable, and so your dwarves aren't going to leave it. They're going to stay there, and it'll be more difficult for the opponent to take it down. This, and as well, you wouldn't have the current +1 defense rule. You'd have something like this instead, which I love that. And again, it's that aspect of the heroes have a unique role in the army. Transports, this is another instance where we think there can be a slight variation to the transport rule. It is a very powerful effect, but the idea that the units can disembark before the transports explode. So they're not shaken. We didn't really talk about, should they still take the dangerous terrain check? I don't think it would be too bad for them to still take the dangerous terrain check, but
you could do either. This is really playing off the thing that it says in the lore is like I put it there that they understand when to pull back. They're like these kind of like risk reward faction. They know when they've gone too far and they're willing to retreat. It says that in the faction, and they're dwarves. They're slow moving, so they rely on transports and stuff to get around. So this kind of gives you both of those in one, right? Like it makes your transports more appealing, but it also you can have the security associated with the reason why they're using these machines in the first place.
Yeah. Lovely. And then the last point is to give certain units a new upgrade that makes the terrain they're in.
Correct the spelling of effect. Who wrote that? Let's go back. Let's go back through the logs. Find out who wrote effect wrong. Someone on mobile.
But the idea that some units can change the unit that they're in into dangerous terrain for enemy units, which is kind of cool. If you get into a forest, you get into a building and you go, hey, hold on, I'm going to just set some traps here and I know where they are, so boom, this is bad for you. And if you want to, again, if there's an objective in a building and you put one of your dwarf units in there, you want to charge me, I've booby trapped it, or booty trapped it if there's a gold marker in there as well.
The thing I was thinking here is like about that kind of mining style, right? Like making things unstable and stuff, but only for non-dwarves. You know, like they're doing all the digging under the ground, so they know what's safe and what's not safe. So they can be inside these terrain pieces without risking themselves, but your opponent might come in and collapse because there's a weak floor under there, or, drills might pop up on the ground and stuff like that. Yeah. Just a little way of changing the terrain in a way that miners probably should do. It's a bit fantasy, but I think it's fun.
Yeah. Lovely. The Jesters, let's talk about those. Take us through.
Yeah, so Elven Jesters, there's not a whole lot on these guys. They're trickery but fragile, right? The Elven Jesters' problem is kind of they've always been very similar to Dark Elves in the way they feel like they should be playing. So we basically kind of gone for a similar-ish thing. So ambush redeploy. This is a thing that they currently have. One of the problems with ambush redeploy is that you couldn't contest objectives on the turn that you do it. Yeah. I think just let them do that, right? Let's give them this kind of tricksy play style where they come back, where they ambush, then disappear, then ambushed again, and on the second time in, because most of the time you're going to ambush and then disappear, so you won't get to contest objectives. But the second time in, you can contest objectives, which means that they have this kind of like hit and runny play style across the board, but using ambush. Obviously, it would need to increase in points cost, but it would give them something really unique to them that no other army can do. No other army can ambush and take objectives. Army-wide evasive, minus range to shooting and charging. So there's this thing about them using illusions. So I thought reducing the range would be a cool way of representing those illusions. As you're like further away, you can't really target them because they're all like illusory.
Which I like what we've got with Wood Elves and Shadow Stalkers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it once again plays, and they're very fragile units, and then this makes them kind of like their way of surviving, very Wood Elvesy. And then, this is something that was actually floated, I think, during the beta. It was one of the rules that was removed, or maybe pre-beta, I think, actually, this rules.
Oh, this was alpha. I think I'm allowed to talk about this.
I think we have spoken about this before.
So this was a rule in alpha. Yeah. Okay, so cool, it's out there. This was a rule that was in alpha that allowed, when you activated a unit, it could swap places with a friendly unit within 9 inches. I can't remember if it's that unit had to have the rule, but originally it was like an army-wide, so you could just have units just whoop and swap places. I loved that rule. Yep. I was so sad to see it taken away, and I think this is a really good place to deploy that, because they're the tricksters. They're nipping around the battlefield, and it just as well, it stops you from just having one death ball unit. Pranksters at the moment, for Elven Jesters, are just such a death ball. Yeah. And if instead your maneuverability is stronger but focused on your strategic placement of units, I really like that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and honestly, this could have unlimited range, right? Like really, really double down on. I think factions should have cool strength. They could, because at the end of the day, you're swapping a unit with a unit, right? You're not teleporting somewhere free. You have to have something there already, right? So if you had something really weak there, they had their chance to kill it and stop you from doing this big teleport maneuver, right? So I think honestly, letting anything swap with anything on the board, but once per game, and it's an upgrade, and maybe it's only on the more elite units. Yeah, I just think that's really, really cool. And once again, a very unique thing that plays into the kind of ambushing, teleporting around, hard to hit thing. It would make for a really cool, like, high skill cap faction, which I think they kind of are already, but gives a lot more tools to the player, which I think would be pretty rad.
Cool. So the Eternal Dynasty, this was one where we wanted to focus on, as is set out in the lore, they have this system of being AI robotic units mixed with the more mortal human elements of it. So I don't think they're actually called humans in it because they aren't humans, but that sort of aspect. And so this is one where we talked about implementing rules that give you a boost based on your identity. So if you're an AI unit, you are cyber, you get +1 to your defense. But when you're within range, I think we did 12 inches of something from the other category, so here human, you get their buff. So the humans get +1 to quality, the robots get +1 to defense, and then when you're next to it, sorry, not swapping, that was an earlier one, just you get their buff as well. So you really want to deploy on the board, and again, this is focusing on your gameplay of intermingling your non-robot and your robot units, and so we went for that aspect of AI and human. At the same time, the Eternal Dynasties do talk a lot about the different clans, and so with this one, we thought just really simple ideas.
Magic.
Look at all of this magic of editing.
You saw nothing.
Live in action. Really simple clan structures. You can give it a fluffy name if you want, but effectively an attack clan, a defense clan, and a brave courage clan, which will give you AP, defense, or morale. And so when you're within a clan, you get nothing for just being in that clan, but when you're within range of another unit with the same clan, you get that buff. So that's the point of saying that if you have one human unit and one cyber unit, they're buffing each other. And if that human unit is in the same clan as another nearby human unit, they're buffing each other. The deployment of your units is going to give you strength on the battlefield. And it's not necessarily just overlapping the same thing. I mean, that +1 defense thing, that could be a -1 AP. There's a lot of space, I think, to explore there. But it's these aspects of you play together, stronger together, all fine. When it falls apart, if you move out of range, then that could be a bit of a blunder for you. Or you take a risky charge and you go out of range. Is it worth it? So yeah, I did put some of these rules together, but not in depth, so I'm not going to waste time going and clicking over
that one. It's as it sounds, and it's possible in the rules creator is the point, really.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
Talk us through Gobbos.
Okay, so yeah, Goblins are the one where the lore was a bit like, well.
Like, in that voice.
Yeah, they're kind of silly, right? So I put Hone In on the Chaos and Scavenger Elements. That's the two things I got from the lore. Yeah, slightly more wacky, these ones, but I think that kind of fits within Goblins. And I think if you're a Goblin player, you probably want to play this. First one, ones to hit cause them to take hits, sixes are extra hits. So this is currently existing like Surge, but also you get the ones to hit cause you to take hits. Now this is hits, not wounds. This isn't the Ratmen thing. But it's basically just kind of reinforcing the idea that they're kind of crazy goblins with crazy inventions and stuff, and they've scavenged all this crap together, and sometimes it blows up. So that's that, which I think is just, I mean, it's basically because you've got weaker units, hits matter kind of less to you, and your hits probably are more valuable because you're shooting something slightly more valuable. So it ends up being a buff, but it adds to the kind of chaos of goblins. Scavenger upgrades. So this is similar to what we have in the game. Ruinous Frenzy is the Dark Elves one, which is to hit an AP. So this is when killing units, you gain bonuses to defense up to 2 times. So this is nice because, one, it plays off your army wide because you're taking hits. If you kill stuff, you get better defense, and then you like to take hits, which is quite nice. But yeah, they're scavengers. They steal things from people, and I quite like they're doing them, just picking up bits of armor and shoulder pads and sticking them on themselves as they march around.
Yeah,
and like ever the greedy goblin, right? They can't help themselves from grabbing stuff as they're moving around. And then finally, this one is probably the most ridiculous rule I've written in this whole document. But vehicles get a rule that means they explode upon death, dealing hits to all other units within 3 inches. Applies to mini tanks and walkers too, and you can upgrade to 6 inches. So basically, everything you've got explodes. And I specifically called out mini tanks and walkers because they're in sets of 3. So the idea is that when one blows up, it could blow up the next one and set off a chain reaction and blow up your whole unit. Once again, just very silly goblin stuff. And I think because they've got relatively cheap walkers and stuff, they're like quality 5, def 3, I think. So they're a bit cheaper than usual. I think it'd be nice to give them an effect that kind of circumvents their low quality. So like you just kind of throw them at your opponent, and like you might hit and you might just blow up. And and they've still got like the army wide as well, so they're like charging forwards, they're shooting at their rocket launchers, and sometimes you walk forwards with your walkers and they just literally blow up and kill the unit anyway. Which I think is fun. Obviously, I've not attached any stats to the hits they take. You could do like 3 hits AP2 or whatever you want, but something that makes it like, I don't actually want to go near that mini walker because it could literally blow up when like just add to the chaos of goblins.
Lovely. Moving on to the Havoc Warriors. So the Havoc Warriors, again here, the goals are very straightforward. They're the evil versions of the Battle Brothers. Keep it simple with some flavour in there. They've already got a lot of flavour. So the changes that we'd make, I mean, one that isn't really a change is 1 buff for the existing sub-faction. We've already got Warbound, Lustbound, Plaguebound. That can stay. That is good stuff. We loved this reckless, I can't remember what it was called now in beta, but the idea of having the option of rolling a dice to gain a benefit on a 2-up, but on a 1 the gods forsake you and you get a drawback instead. So here it's when attacking, you roll a dice for the unit. On a 2+ you get +1 AP, but if you get a 1 on that dice, you get -1 to your defense until the end of the round. That was in beta. Why did it go? It was so cool. We'd absolutely stick that one back in. And then an upgrade for terrifying people. You're the big bad gods of the ethereal realm. An upgrade to give a reduction in morale check quality when that unit causes something to take a morale check. If I'm shooting you with big scary demons around me, you know what? You're going to be a bit more scared than normal. Yeah. So something that could be really very effective. Of course, it's going to be an optional upgrade on certain specific units, probably more elite ones or more thematic, terrifying units. But one that just will let you have these themes of this evil, malicious force. I know OPR doesn't have anyone who's truly evil. We've got this much more grayscale. But when you're the Havoc Warriors and the gods invading, you're probably closer to grey than not.
So pretty damn evil.
Yeah. Lovely. High Elf fleets. Now, Harvey, full credit that this was your juice and jam, so let's have you take us through it.
So this is another kind of like wacky one that kind of goes slightly more outside the bounds of where the original beta went to, right? But I thought, let's make factions unique, okay? So what did I look at?
I love this, by the way, so get gassed for what I think is a really sick idea.
So bring some casting theming into the army, and units should be specialized is basically what I went for. These are kind of like elite, very specialized dudes. So what did I do? So the units are actually already specialized. They already have very, very specialized units. They've got like the AP guy, they've got the poison guy, they've got the flamer guy, they've got the long range guy. And so I thought, well, we have heroes that get all these upgrades to join these units, but what if we just removed heroes from high elf fleets? What if we just made it so that every unit could just get a hero in it? So you give a hero upgrade and they get it. So all the auras, all the casting, all that kind of stuff, you can just add a hero into every single unit. It's not its own model. It's its own model, but it's one of the existing models in the unit. It's not like you're adding a tough 3 guy to it.
It's an upgrade,
You're just upgrading one guy and he becomes your like X-Arch or whatever the word is for it. Like, you're like more elite guy in the unit, but you can apply it to every single unit in your army. I just thought that would be such a rad idea and something that OPR just doesn't have, right? And it lets you, if you want to go for heavy spellcaster, you can put a spellcaster in every single unit. If you want to make use of their cool auras, you can do that in every single unit. And you just give the auras that were relevant to the unit, right? Like you wouldn't give a melee one to a range one. But I just thought it'd be a cool, spicy way of going, like, when you open up the High Elf Fleets page, you go, where are the heroes?
Where are my heroes?
Where are my heroes, right? Okay. And then you start clicking through stuff. You're like, oh, I get it. It's so cool.
And as well, it's very strong, but these are going to be the same toughness as the models in the unit, which I think for everyone would be tough one because elementals. I don't know what your design idea with this was, but I presume elementals don't get that.
No, it's just the guys on foot.
Just the guys on foot. But so you know what? He can get sniped, and he's only a tough one dude, but he's still. He's got loads of them, so he's really exciting, unique, and powerful, but with this vulnerability built in.
And you can do what you want with it as well. Like, if you wanted to make him slightly more special, you could give that member of the unit +1 to hit as well, like a little sergeant buff, whatever you want, right? But just something that makes it go like, this guy's my special guy, but I didn't need to, play with the hero rules within OPR to make it work. And then finally, elementals can get spell conduit. The elementals are supposed to be like the servants of the high elves, so I kind of like the idea of them casting through them. And now that every unit can get a hero with a caster in it, you can go really caster heavy. So you're always basically going to find a use for this. And that was all I thought. That's all really neat for high elves, right? They already have strong themes in their army anyway. This just slightly reinforces it and gives them their own cool toy.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the army feels unique with that. You don't see this everywhere else. And it's that aspect of going, holy crap, that's cool, but I see where it's different from something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that. That was absolutely gas on the fire. Let's have a look at the human bros from Earth in the Sirius sector with the Human Defense Force. The goals with the design points on this were to reinforce that orders and commands play style, and then also show that they've got strength in numbers. Now, this is something that I feel that the current iteration does have, but there are ways that I think you could just make things feel a little bit less clunky. The top one that you and I are really quite enthusiastic about is the radios change, making it so that if a unit's got a radio, you don't need the unit giving the order to have a radio as well. That guy's going to carry a radio around and can radio to other radio buffed units. How many times can I say radio? So rather than having 2 units have to have this upgrade, just you put it on a unit. If this unit is targeted by an order, it's 24 inches rather than 12. Like just that. And as well, that is way more simple than the current OPR design. So that would just be one.
That did actually get changed in the end, though. I think at the time when we wrote this, that it was the complicated double one. But I think by the end of the beta, they got something like this.
Human Defense Force.
I think
we are consummate professionals here.
We are. Let me just. Yeah, so now, extended buff range. So if this unit is in 24 inches of another friendly unit with this rule that has a hero in it, then that hero may use special rules that allow it to be friendly units.
It exists!
Yeah, so it's basically what I've written here. But at the time of writing, it was still the 2 radios thing. So this is already a thing that exists.
I had completely overlooked that. Well done. Tano's in our Google Doc. The other thing there is that saying that heroes are limited to buffs and casters. What's your view on the tank commander? Tank company hero.
So the tank company didn't exist at the time of writing this. I mean, it kind of existed. It had advanced tactics.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a tank thing. I'm not sure. It's a better tank, isn't it? Really, you just take it. HCF have always had like a hero slot problem. You want to max out your heroes because take aim is so good, or whatever it's called now, precision shooter buff. And I think the tank thing being able to give itself +1 to hit for 35 points or whatever it is at the moment is kind of wild. because it would cost way more than that if it was just a flat buff. So if you have hero slots available, then take some tank commanders because they're kind of rad.
That's so good.
But yeah.
But limiting heroes down a bit, because then the heroes, again, these are just normal dudes that are just very inspiring and give orders to a well-disciplined, well-drilled army. Yeah. So limiting that down there. Giving targeting marks to units to act as spotters. We have something similar. I think, is it in the walkers can give out a relentless buff?
Yeah, exactly. But I think the units that have got it is a weird selection. Some of them are like artillery has it, I think, and it's like, well, obviously artillery is not your spotter, right? These should be on the front line guys.
I mean, I don't know how we've got this far into the video without me ranting about it. Bikes need specialty in OPR. They don't. They're just limp at the moment. And I think when you've got things like this, that's what it should be. Your fast vanguard unit, your bikes, or your scouts should be the ones then saying to the rest of your military forces, here's the target. Here's the weaknesses. Let's actually designate some strategy here. And I think that's something that I'd love to see in future iterations of OPR in general, just making bikes feel a bit more special. And I know Tano has mentioned it somewhere in one of the Patreon channels, I'm sure, but it's something that I'd love to see come to the fore. And then the last thing is just slightly changing the current army-wide rule. I think this is quite close to one that existed in beta. Yeah. I think in beta, was it even +1 defense? But this is saying +1 defense when you're within 9 inches of a friendly unit. Nice and simple. Stronger together, again, quite similar to the Eternal Dynasties one. We're not pushing the boat out too far here, but something that just reinforces that these are a disciplined, coherent army that do well when together. And if you leave them on your own, it's a dude in the Sirius sector surrounded by thousands of aliens. You're probably going to die. But, give them a fighting chance when they're all grouped up.
And they still have the banner upgrades and stuff like that. They give them +1 morale. That currently gives them an extra +1 on top of their army-wide. But yeah, I mean, HDF was in a good spot before the beta, right? They already had a very distinct playstyle. So this just kind of doubles down a bit more with the range marking thing, a bit more with the spotters, and really reinforce the kind of like, we have lots of dudes who give buffs. So we have commanders who give buffs to our dudes, and our dudes give buffs to our tanks. And, that kind of like flow of strategic interplay. Also, I didn't make mention here to the what's it called, I can't recall right now, but the upgrade that lets you activate another unit, coordinate. That could probably stay as well. I think that's quite thematic and interesting, and we were pretty excited about that when we first heard about it as the original army wide for HDF. So yeah, something like that could definitely stay in as well.
I think as well, this does kind of underline, especially talking about Human Defense Force, the current 3.5 one's really good. The Human Defense Force are in a really good place, but it's just a couple of subtle tweaks that we were talking about, and mostly it was in the beta when everything was all changing.
Yeah. Moving on to the Human Inquisition. Harvey, take us through this.
So this is quite a short one. We actually haven't even written our goals for this. It says goals, but it means changes.
We didn't even do it.
Yeah, so Human Inquisition have always been a weird army. I've often said that they're like kind of like Titan Lords. They don't really fit in OPR. They're kind of so weird to everything else. But what the beta did is it kind of gave them a unique playstyle in their new double activation thing, which made them this kind of like weirdly elite-ish kind of list. It's like expensive but relatively fragile. And to be honest, I think that's kind of a cool thing for them to have, right? That's unique enough for it to be its own thing. The only thing that we would change is the Assassins got all reduced to T3 from T6. And I think it would be nice for them to break Balval a little bit and be able to output more wounds worth of damage.
Yeah.
So I think if they went to tough 6 wound output instead of tough 3, that would make them feel more traditionally like an assassin. And make those double activations with them a little bit more meaty. This is something that already exists for aircraft, and it already exists for artillery, which obviously one of those is hypermobile, one of them is stationary. So it's not like stationary means you can do more. So I think you could probably find a way of it doing this for the assassins as well. The way OPR works, it would have to be a keyword. So literally no idea what that keyword says. It could just be like their current army-wide, but with like, veteran or inquisitorial, whatever it says on it. Like inquisitorial agent. Yeah, like, elite inquisitorial agent or whatever. And then that just gives it the extra rider as well.
Yeah. That's cool.
Or maybe just elite as a tag or whatever. I don't know.
Quick explanation for those of you who are listening who don't know what Balval is. Balval is the internal balance validation, is it? Or value?
Yeah, balance validation,
Balance validation that is used to calculate how much is the maximum damage a single model can output. And it's all calculated based on the toughness value of the model. If it's a toughness 1, roughly it can output 2 wounds, but there's exceptions. Toughness 3, its max could be a damage output of 4 wounds, but there's exceptions, and so on. There's a calculation behind the scenes that goes on, and what we're talking about is letting a hero, a single tough 3 model, change that, like you see in artillery, where they have A6 on a tough 3 body, but on usual heroes and tough 3s, you'll see max of A4 typically.
Yeah, so this would let them go to A8. You get 133% of your wounds as potential hits, not including stuff like Furious and on 6 effects and such.
And that really would give them that hyper glass cannon precision, threatening double activation feel. You would actually be afraid of that guy coming up with the battlefield. Whereas at the moment, I think the dial back to tough 3 was really good for them, but it's just not quite enough, I think. We're just a bit short.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Human Inquisition, very exciting. On to the infected colonies. This was one that we spoke a lot when the Refluffening was announced, and Tano was talking about his goals for the IC, for the infected colonies. And I don't know, in my mind, I think of like the flood from Halo. And I love that imagery in my mind. Of course I do, because that's where my brain went to. So we set the goals here of saying to emphasize the different strains of infection, and that the strain is the sentient creature, not the bodies. So here the plan that we had a little chat about was give the units a toolbox of effects to pick from. This is kind of similar to that bioweapons idea that we talked about earlier, but for rules in stealth. Rules instead. So that sort of aspect where you can upgrade with one of, so you've got Boom, which is the deal damage when it dies, Stealth regen, Bane. We've written Poison, but it should be Bane on attacks here, etc. So that's one idea that we thought would be really cool as a way of helping you push into a theme with your units. And it could be a case that you just go, my whole army is Boom. I've got, like the Flood, right? I've got this. You're just stitching yourself back together with regeneration. Things like that could feel quite fun. Otherwise, then an upgrade for it to say that when a model is killed in melee, it deals 1 hit to the attacker, so this is Boom again, but with something new, which is for each model destroyed in the enemy unit by those hits, restore a model to the unit. Doesn't function if the unit's wiped out completely, but this was your idea, Harv. So this is the idea of the infection spreading and then claiming something, a little bit Last of Us vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I to be honest, when I was reading through the lore for infected colonies, a lot of it was kind of very Last of Us vibes. And I think that's a cool thing, right? It's like, obviously zombies have been done a million times, right? It's not like Last of Us is particularly unique, but it does tick a lot of the boxes that infected colonies represent. So I think something like that would be really cool. And it's also just like, it's mechanics we don't seen before, and that was kind of part of the document, right? Like, we wanted to experiment with things that we think are cool, we don't currently see in the game, right? If we just taken the existing mechanics and rehash them, I don't think this would have been quite as fun for us at the very least, right? We wanted to stick to those original principles, but we also wanted to go like, what's the don't think, just charge take on this? What's something cool? What's something we think would work in the game? And this is that, right? It's like a roundabout way of getting regen, which I think is a cool little idea.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique one. With more ideas for ways of getting that in, stay tuned.
You missed the last one. You missed the last one.
Oh, I did miss the last one. Of course. Sorry. And this is again back to a marking for token thing. Leaders, heroes can mark units, enemy units, with a spore token. And again, another really cool idea here from Harvey, which is that if that unit would be destroyed instead, it comes under the infected colonies players control with 1 wound remaining. Can't contest objectives. So if you're doing this on a big tough 12 thing, you're not getting a tough 12 model, it's coming back with 1. But you do this on a block of 10 guys, you're getting that block of 10 guys, right?
Yeah, just something to I mean, I don't know, actually I haven't really thought about it for block of 10. I was only thinking for tougher things when I was originally thinking about this. Whatever it is, I think it's just an interesting way of playing around with this idea of taking control of enemy units. The 1 wound thing might not be the best way of solving that problem, but just something that makes it so like you take control of enemy units, which is not something we see either, right? Like the way I pictured this was like, okay, you kill off their like greater demon and you get it back with 1 wound, and it can't contest objectives, so you don't get that advantage. But they then have this thing that's like they want to deal with because it's got 1 wound, and you may end up just throwing it into something because it's going to die on the crackback or whatever. But just something to consider, right? Like something to make you go like, oh, I need to play around the fact that this war token thing exists. I can't be so willy-nilly about this because I'll give them an extra activation and they'll be able to use that for this or that or the other. So I think kind of cool there.
Yeah. That's a nice, good, fun idea. Sorry, not skipping anything now. Let's have a look at the Jackals. One that you're quite passionate about your Jacks, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I like the kind of theme of the Jackals. I think it's kind of cool to have some of the more like... I mean, they're not like bestial in the way that like Alien Hives are, I guess, but Jackals kind of have that like that vibe to them, which I think is cool to explore, right? Like I like the non-human factions. So yeah, let's focus on the fact that these guys, so ambush is one of their themes, and scavenger as well. So they're nomadic, right? So I think that's kind of interesting, and this is something they had a little bit of before, but it got removed. They used to have lots of ambush and ambush beacon and stuff, and that was very much the way I think they was played. But yeah, less of that now. So what did I do here? So trap upgrades. So this is like another token thing or another totem. I don't know what exactly the wordings we use for this kind of stuff, but effectively what you do is you get your tokens at the start of the game that you place down, face down. These are traps. So OPR would print all sorts of different little tokens for it, right? One would have a little explosion on it, one would have a snare or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this is something that units can get as an upgrade. And so when you deploy, you also deploy their traps on the map. And basically, they're hidden until you get within 12 inches of them, or perhaps the start of the game. We hadn't really decided. I like either, to be honest. And then effectively, when an enemy comes close to it, probably within 3 inches or so, one of the effects happens. So we count with 3 are here, just as an example, but 1 is 6 hits AP1, 1 is force and morale check, and 1 is less movement next time they move. So you can imagine the different use cases for these kind of things. And this may not be perfectly balanced. They might need some changes and stuff. But it basically means that the Jackal player has some sort of presence on the board from deployment, which I think is really cool and plays into that kind of scavengery kind of like style and ambush style. The next thing I've got is this. Go on.
Just to piggyback on that, having the different type of traps that you can get lets you demonstrate, and like it's that show not tell aspect of the specialty of the units. If you've got your basic dudes, which are your nomads, right? They could just be slow you down kind of trapper guys, but then you can have your vultures, which we know are your hit and run guys. Those can be the 6 hits with AP1. Really, the guys who are trying to hunt you down and kill you. And then on your beast, is it called beast gunners and your great beast? Is it those guys? The big ones. They can then be the scary things who are forcing your morale check, and it's that aspect of showing the specialty of the units through the effects they bring to the battlefield, rather than pointing and saying, this is my scary guy, this is my damage guy, this is my whatever guy, utility guy. Things like that can be shown rather than...
It also introduces a new thing to OPR that's not really explored at the moment, which is you obviously see your opponent's list, right? So you'd see the upgrades they bought, right? So you'd know what the traps were, you just wouldn't know where they were, right? So then it kind of plays this like, I've explored this, that's the movement one, that must mean that one of these two is the movement one. Okay, so now I can start playing around that in that way. So it's this kind of like slow development of information. The next thing they got is the scavenger upgrade. I think this is just there was a similar thing for the goblin one.
Goblins we did defense, right, where they stuck the nettle onto their arms.
Yeah, so this is the same idea here. As they kill units, they get bonuses to hit. This already exists in the beta. We are live, I guess now, but it just kind of plays more to that scavenger aspect again. I think one of the lore things picks out about the fact that they pick up other people's weapons and stuff. But yeah. So Hunter's Mark on underused units like nomads. This already exists once again. I think it'd be quite nice to make their chaff the things that bring quite a lot of like the traps and the hunter's marks and stuff like that. So you're encouraged to bring this variety in your army. So they do currently have this on nomads, but I just wanted to write it down just to be like, I think this is good design, right? I think it's okay
this is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keep this going. And then just a general note about Jackals in general. So more ambush and scout across the board, and add optional upgrades for rapid ambush like Dark Battle Brothers. So the idea being here is you combine scout with instant ambush, or delayed ambush if you don't want to pay the points for it, with traps and stuff. So you kind of like set up the board in the way you want to and then go from there. And then it kind of forces you to play and that you could point cost balance this, right, to be like, okay, well, the Jackal player needs to take advantage of the fact that they have ambush and traps and scout, but they pay quite a heavy tax for that. And if they play well, then they get rewarded for that, and they can do all their cool combos. And if they don't play well, then they're going to get blown up. And then it turns Jackals from what it is right now, which is basically just like squishy, walk up the board and die, to we kind of start in good positions, and then we go to see where the game goes from there. Just give them a bit more teeth compared to where they're at right now.
I like that as well. It kind of, while you were saying that, the impression I kind of got was TF2 engineer vibes, right? You as the engineer, you run around, you're not doing that much damage, you're not doing that much great stuff. But if you get into position with your turret, you're going to absolutely ruin kids. Yeah. And using position, using your tricks and your traps, that's where the Jackals will do their thing. You don't have to change their stat lines. They can predominantly be a Qual 5 army as they are now, because you know what? If you hit these guys and you get to them, you're going to kill them. But you got to play through their game first. And it just feels like that would be such a sweet little idea.
Yeah, I like that idea of them getting their effectiveness through other means, right? Like, traps and marks and stuff like that are a cool way of getting throughput into an army that doesn't then necessarily need to have every unit have A2 and AP4 and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Lovely. That was the Jackals. Machine Cults are the next one along. Our goals with this one were to emphasize their augmented bodies, their high mobility and their adaptability. How did we kind of piece this together? One thought was, first of all, sticking to that point we've made earlier, you don't need army-wide rules on every unit. This one just being a quick shot upgrade for shooting units. Quick shot being the ability to rush and shoot. Rush and shoot before the closed captions automatically give an alarm warning for anyone wondering what I'm talking about. Another idea is to give them an option. I love this. We talked about this way early in beta as being such a cool idea. Yeah. When you activate a unit, you pick one effect. Either until the end of the activation, you get +1 to hit, or you get +3 inches for your move actions, for your rush and your charge actions. You have a choice to make as you activate your unit. Are you on the killy mode or are you on the movie mode? And if you want to redeploy somewhere quite quickly, that's your option, but you're sacrificing the ability to get the bonus to hit. Are you ready? Are you in position? Are you going to hit? Then you change mode. Transformers, Optimus Prime comes in with a big old smacky fist ready to go. Just good versatility shown through their mechanical adaptations. And then the final thing is giving humans an option to be more resilient, more stick in place, +2 defense and +2 morale, advanced cybernetics, optional upgrade for them. Could be quite powerful, but what we're not doing is pumping the damage output. You don't need damage output to show your theme and your flavor and your fluff, but give your humans who have gone and got parts of their body lopped off a bit more resilience.
Yeah, there's the whole thing about they're trying to advance their bodies and stuff. Well, there's literally no sign of that right now, right? There's no sign of like there being different people who've done different levels of cybernetic enhancement to them. So it's just cool to go like, and it's quite a big buff, right? You very rarely see things as like in the +2/+2s category in OPR, right? You see shielded for +1.
Reasonably so.
Yeah.
Reasonably so. Yeah. +2 is big.
Yeah, +2 is big, but it's kind of an interesting thing to have in an army then, right? Like that gives Machine Cults this real clear identity, right? Like they're a really mobile shooting army that can have these, with proper upgrades, can have these kind of like core block of units that aren't going to shift as much. And obviously it would probably cost you an absolute bomb on certain units, but yeah, just another idea, I think.
Brilliant. So that's our thoughts on the Machine Cults. Harvey, talk to me about the Orc Marauders.
So, I mean, Orc Marauders are very strong already, aren't they, really? They don't actually need a massive amount of help ever.
They're damn good.
We could have very clearly just left them at just getting the new Shooty plus Furious thing. But yeah, so the goal here, I went through the lore and reinforced so they're a martial society and they have a need for strong leaders, right? That's the two things I pulled from the lore. So what we said here, so yeah, new Shooty plus Furious. I can't remember what it was actually called at the moment. Ferocious? Is that what it's called? Ferocity?
Ferocious, that's the one.
Ferocious?
I'm sure it's Ferocious, yeah.
Yeah, it changed names a couple of times, I think, during the beta. Yeah. But leave that in there, right? Very happy for that. It's a very, very strong effect, but I think it kind of fits the Orc thing, so cool with that. Heroes get +1 morale when joining a unit. That reinforces their need for strong leaders, right? So you place your leaders within units, and then they get a stacking morale buff, so that it's not just the heroes quality, which would normally be like 3 up, I guess, for bosses. You then get a +1 to a 2 up. So it makes leaders really important to these things. And then finally, so an upgrade that when you destroy a unit or win a combat, you get a fearless once. This is something we actually spoke about maybe when we did our Elven Jesters bad rap.
Yeah.
You're like, how do you fix this thing, right? How do you fix this army? They need some way of getting morale. And I thought it actually kind of fit within the Orc thing, right? Like these strong fighters become like bloodthirsty and fearless, right? So that kind of plays into that there. But yeah, Orcs don't need a massive amount of love. Maybe giving them morale is actually too much. I don't know. But it just felt like an interesting way of giving them a unique playstyle. I like the idea of rewarding them for winning combat or destroying a unit. So it wouldn't necessarily need to be fearless or whatever. But just some way of kind of reinforcing that. Like you, before we start recording, you mentioned maybe giving them fear instead, which I think is also a cool thing, right? So like whatever it is, the idea there I think is sound, giving effects once when things happen in a way that currently isn't represented in OPR, where we have stuff like you gain +1 to hit permanently. Not just like anything was like, gain teleport once would be a cool thing for some things to have in the way the spellcasting gives it.
I like it. They don't necessarily as well have to have a drawback that comes with that of saying when you lose combat. It's a point that just it was discussed. Ooh, maybe it was discussed behind closed doors, but it's a conversation that has been had about, do you need to bake in drawback effects? And the phrase that I've used is lose more effects. You don't want to do, in my view, things that would say that when you lose combat, bad things happen to you. That's attached to an upgrade that you're giving to your units, because that can cause loss spirals very easily. OPR already has a high amount of lethality, especially through combat. And imagine the fact that if you lost combat, you then were on a drawback into the next combat. To lose combat, you typically have to take wounds. So it's like stacking losses effects on you. So before someone comes in and says, why don't you have a drawback to this as well? You don't need those drawbacks to be in there always. The drawback is in the army book itself and how that's built and designed by OPR. You don't need to stick that on here. So just want to make sure I raise that.
I also think like because it's alternate activations, you are less at risk of win more and lose more effects, right? Because it's not like your whole army gains an effect that then they then have to deal with, right? Like obviously if it was like you go, I go, then I could really leverage this effect. So it is slightly less powerful than that. But I also think that these style of kind of win more effects where you gain like fearless once is also not so bad, right? Because most likely, like you said, you've charged and you've won combat, so really the threat to that unit doesn't really exist, and if you're really worried about it, you could change it to like until the end of the round or something, right? And then because you're not really going to want to charge things anyway.
With that on the receiving end, you've been charged, and now the unit that charged you has got fearless once. That unit's still fatigued till the end of the round. You can engage with that. Alternating activations is such a cure for so many terrifying effects like that. There is of course ways you break this. If you just broad church introduce when win combat gain X effects, people are going to abuse that in a calculator. But here I think it's a great little addition. Fearless or fear, I'd go with the idea of fearless here, but someone somewhere could have a fear effect just as something getting scarier as it goes along. Also quite cool. I
think also just a general point about Orc Marauder balance. I think they could probably do with losing a speed feat as well. That's like, it seems like an insane rule to me. So like this could easily come in with the speed feat was gone as well, because it would make their charging less guaranteed and less one way.
That's also a fair point.
You're going to win a lot more combats if you're charging. Especially with the new Shooty Furious. I don't know if it's just always, isn't it? It's no longer when charging.
Oh, yeah. Orcs are just ferocious as 6s explode. That's it.
Yeah. Which obviously is not their old identity. Their old identity used to be furious with charging and shooting. Obviously, you have to be shooting. So they've actually got a slight buff there as well on top of this. Which, to be honest, they could also lose, right? They could very easily go back to having Shooty and Furious as 2 tags. And so it's only on charging and shooting, or just change the ferocity rule.
Yeah. Cool. Orc Marauders, there's our thoughts. Prime Brothers. Our goals here were to give them a fresh spin on the Battle Brothers whilst emphasising the gene mods thing. So this kind of came from reading the World Book, actually. The World Book emphasises that the Prime Brothers are one step further down the gene mod line than the Battle Brothers. And so with that, we wanted them to effectively still be seated and couched in the Battle Brothers design. So keep them the same as the Battle Brothers designs we've talked about earlier. We were quite keen on making them 3/3s, as has been done in beta, rather than the 3/2s.
Yeah, I think this actually came up before the beta changed it.
Yeah, it was.
At the time, we were like bringing down a 3/3 so we can mess around with their defense a bit.
Galaxy Brain. Yeah, well, it was that, actually. It was talking about this next point, and then I think it was you that went, well, make them 3/3s. But it was this idea that I had of saying that you give them the option to drug up, use their gene mods at the start of a round. They can gain +1 to hit permanently, and if they do, they gain -1 to their defense rolls permanently. And this I'm pretty sure, if you go to the World Book, there's a paragraph in there about the Prime Brothers. It's pretty much that. The more offensive they get, the more unstable they get, and they die quicker.
Yeah, something about their bodies deteriorating or something. I remember you linking it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we were having that conversation, and it's just kind of a cool idea. And then Harvey was going, yeah, but if you can do that, make them 3/3s. And yeah, that was just a really nice little balance for it.
Yep.
Yeah, Prime Brothers, again, nice and simple when you've already done the design for the Battle Brothers. Ratmen Clans, we talk about how much we love them. Harvey, talk us through what we're doing here.
Yeah, so one thing that's not actually written in the goals here, which is worth mentioning, is Ratmen Clans are like mutated rats. They were like rats that were being tested on or whatever. So that is another part of the lore that we've included here. We just, the goals didn't include it. But yeah, so the Ratmen's culture of protecting the oppressed and endless waves of rats are the things we pulled out from the lore. So obviously the reinforcement rule that got added this patch, I think we're pretty happy with that. I think it's there to stay. Obviously it might need a point cost adjustment. Some of the units it's on is a bit silly. But overall, decent mechanic, gives us something unique, very happy about that. And I'm pretty sure that would be rated pretty highly if you did a survey of what people think was fun about the new patch. It's new mechanics. So then we similar thing to the Prime Brothers here. So we were playing on this idea, okay, they're mutated rats and some of them more mutated than other ones. So let's actually just use the Prime Brother mechanic again. This is a new mechanic that you can introduce to the game. Here's another application of it. You can gain +1 to hit, but you lose -1 to morale. Because this is also another thing about their getting fueled up and getting scared and whatever. So it's just another interesting application of that we thought fit the Ratmen Clans. And then finally, there was this idea that, yeah, like the rats are going to liberate other rats and stuff or whatever. They like liberate oppressed people or whatever. Yeah. So we like this idea of some elite units having this once per game effect where when a friendly unit within 12 inches fails a morale check, they basically get to act straight away. So they get to shoot, charge, or move 6 inches. And they count as not fatigued for that move. So it's very similar to the Human Inquisition one, but this is like a conditional trigger and plays actually really nicely with both reinforcement, which fails when things run away, which triggers when things run away, and also the +1 to hit, -1 morale thing, because now you have a way of playing off that morale as well, which is kind of cool, because then this becomes like, okay, Ratmen Clans are like the running away morale mechanic faction. And then they have their own unique playstyle again. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool thing, but only on the elite units. So probably only on like the agents and the actual elites and stuff like that. And the heroes maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, you put it on the elite operators, as you said, the agents, the bodyguards maybe as well.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you pick whatever would make sense, right? But
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really cool idea of going, oh no, something's gone wrong for them. Bang. Shoot the thing that shot them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, back the fuck off, my little bro.
Yeah, super rat cape streaming coming out the air. There's another mini we'd love to see designed. We've already got the gangster ogres. Now we'll have super rat.
It's like a real Clark Kent thing. He's like a gangster by day and a superhero by night. You know, little S on his chest.
That's it. Oh, and you can even then substitute the minis as your +1 to hit and your -1 morale effects. Yeah. Oh my god!
I think one thing that actually isn't included in this document anywhere, but one thing I would like to see included in OPR is that idea of switching models around. I think it'd be really cool to have 2 different stat blocks for a single unit that you can switch between at the start of an activation. It's not something we touched on here at all, I don't think. But yeah, I think that would be a really cool idea. You know, you could just like, you know, things turning into monsters and beasts or like werewolves or whatever, right? If you had like a werewolf unit that had like a man form and a werewolf form, you know, you think back to MTG, right? That was a thing back then.
Flip
the cards over. Yeah, something like that would be really, really cool in OPR. Not explored currently and obviously not supported in Army Forge. But it would be cool to have 2 different minis for stuff that you could swap around, right? And maybe like mounting and dismounting as a mechanic and such. I don't know how you'd make it work, but something that's not currently explored, which I think has scope for.
Yeah. Well, it's another one of those things, again, thinking kind of broadly, it's one of those points in design where you can have changing profiles, but you can avoid the pitfall, as people have so loudly said they dislike, of too much token tracking.
Yeah.
If you want, you can represent that by a token, by a model, but people apparently don't like that when there's too much, wherever the break point is. But if you have it that, your guy's taken X amount of hits and now he's even more offensive and even more defensive, and you want to go from a stocky fighter like this and he's warped into an eldritch horror instead, model off, model on. There you go.
Swap around,
that's a cool little idea. And again, as Harvey says, not put it in here, but how would you implement that exact design? And immediate calling you out for the people getting ready for the Dragon Empire army who are saying they want to see people transforming into dragons. No. No low-hanging fruit here, my friends. We would like you to give us something spicy in the comments as to how you would use a switch model mechanic in OPR.
But perfect example there, though. Dragon Empire is a good example. If you think back to like Total War Warhammer, Malice Darkblade has like a demonic form that he turns into when he's low on health. There's loads of examples of how you could use this in OPR. And actually, it kind of already exists in a way with Change Demon, Change Horrors, right? When they die, turn into different forms and you swap them.
Yeah, it's already there.
Right? So the kind of concept's already there. But maybe we just need to...
I'm thinking World of Warcraft Demon Hunter models, actually, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly that as well. Yeah. There's loads of cool examples, but not something we've explored in this document, but definitely something would be super, super interesting to see in OPR. Especially in our Don't Think Just Charge world, where every army has like a slightly more interesting thing that ties in. It's not just an army wide and a collection of auras. It's like this is the army specialty that they focused on. Transformations could be one of those for an army.
That's cool. Right. Don't even know who did what. Rebel Guerrillas. I tried my best, and I'm sorry for butchering it entirely. Rebel Monkeys. Yeah, we love these guys. Our goals with this one were to reinforce the guerrilla play style. This is a smaller band of rebels versus the big bad David and Goliath. Ewok time. When did you slide that into the notes?
Yes, Ewok time.
I didn't know that was there. So our thoughts on that one. Keep hiss and run from beta. Army-wide hiss and run on a shooting heavy army is cool. This is where, we've talked about it in Dark Elf Raiders and Dark Elves. In a shooting heavy army, this is where that is a cool effect. Fire and Fade, people talk about it coming from Warhammer and being very, very fond of it. And I agree. I think I've only played one game against hit and run Rebel Guerrillas, and it was kind of cool, but they just lacked a little bit of special something. And so, how are we going to give them their special something? One of the things is revert an old ambush nerf that came in a year and a bit ago. Let them contest objectives on the round that they ambush in, except for round 4. Very important caveat there. Not in the last round of the game. You don't swoop in and steal it. No. You've still got to play the game. But if you come in round 1 and round 2 and round 3, you can contest your objectives. I really think that's important for them. This is one that you've added just in the last few minutes, Harvey, and I think it's brilliant. Covered precision to their units. It's so good to give that. I think Soul-Snatcher Cults, did they end up with that in live on their...
They have covered something
acolytes?
For sure. I'm
pretty sure they've got covered.
Yeah.
Because I played with them when they got that in beta. Love it.
Cool.
It is such a little power bump to those units that really you want them to be annoying on objectives, harassing the flanks. And if you get them, just fling them into a bit of cover, then they are suddenly hitting that nice little amount more. And I think, give that to the Rebel Guerrillas. Again, they want to be in the cover. They want to be in the woods, in the ruined buildings, in the craters, ambushing out of the ground. Make them stronger when they do it. Give them a mini hunter. 2 more units, so ambush again with the Rebel Guerrillas bonus of can contest, but with AP 1 on the ambushing round. Really just kicking the power up the turn they ambush in, and then similar as we've done with Dow, give their AP spotters a 3-up to actually go off.
And this could become a 2-up like the Dow ones and the change we mentioned earlier. But I think overall, I don't think they need the AP spotters really, but it is what it is. I think they're fine additions for us, but I quite like the idea of like lots of spotters, and then your force actually like ambushes in round 2 and makes use of the marks you put down. If you watch the most recent list doctors, we basically did that one on the list there, and I think that's a kind of cool identity for them. But yeah, like this is just, I think it makes them feel a little bit more like a cohesive faction, like they have some sort of theme to them. And +1 to hit is going to feel really good when previously their best to hit was 4 and 5s and stuff. So going from a 5 to a 4 and a 4 to a 3, it just feels so good.
So good, yeah.
And yeah, like you put them next to terrain and stuff like that, and it feels more like that kind of guerrilla. Like if you traditionally think of like what are guerrilla tactics, it's like hit and
what
run
is guerrilla warfare?
Now. And yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think that plays into that quite a lot more.
We're triggering the meme of the guy having a flashback to Vietnam,
Coming out of the trees, yeah.
Look thing. But we really want people to remember the Battle of Endor, and that little fluffy Shih Tzus can, in fact, terrify the Empire. So that's the Rebel Guerrillas. Robot Legions. This is
I think you can
another
take this one. This is what you're
can I take this one?
Yeah.
Because it's got something in there that I just, my brain went, this is fun, so let's do it. So the Robot Legions, our goals for this was to demonstrate their technological expansion that underpins their resilience and their self-reparation. The idea is they fragmented from the High Elf fleets and went off and did their own thing by building robot worlds and expanded. How did they do that? Go read all of the lore, but it was effectively by building out their worlds and developing from there. What were the changes we were going to make? We're going to keep self-repair, just keep it that 6-up save as it currently is. It's simple, it's effective, and thematic. Another idea that came to us, I think this was your one, Harvey, which is that you can give certain units the ability that when it finishes its turn within 9 inches of a friendly unit, pick one of those units and move it by 3 inches. Doesn't have to be much, but this is that idea of you are close by to a friendly unit and you are spreading your sentience and they get a little jolt of energy that helps them move. The final thing, which is the idea I really wanted to kind of explore, is totems. Now, what are totems as an idea? Don't know yet, but it's one of 2 ideas that we're still we've had a lot of back and forth about the way of doing this, and we're kind of 60-40 on one. The 60% idea is that you've got an optional unit to purchase or a hero spawn mechanic that is an immovable object that does not have its own activations. It is something within your army that just gives a spatial static buff. So this can be expanding your self-repair if you're within 12 inches of it to be on a 5-up. Or, and this is the 40%, you can actually make it a full extra unit that you do activate that also has that static effect, but then when you activate it, it can't shoot or attack or anything like that. It hands out buffs. Spell Conduit, for example, is something that could do. There's a lot to kind of explore and playtest with it. One of the thoughts that you had, Harvey, is what if this is just shit? Why would someone want to actually engage with it? If all it's doing is giving a flat buff, I might ignore it. There's a fair point to say about this thing has to be able to be interacted with. Does it? 90% sure it has to be able to be interacted with. And if it does, how defensive is it? Is it a def 3, 2? Is it tough 3, tough 6? What is the thing? But it's that sort of aspect of, in broad pitch, it's a unit that you have in your army. You deploy it within 12 inches of your deployment zone. So like with scouts, it's completely immobile. But what it does is it buffs and improves your army in some sort of way. Just like effectively a drop pod that you scout that rather than shooting and transporting troops, buffs them. But of course, if you wanted to expand it, you could do other things. Doesn't contest objectives.
That kind of stuff,
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely there's loads of ways to play around with this mechanic. Like all the things you listed there, the different ways you could possibly build it out. But it is once again something we don't really see in OPR. Even like mines currently can move and run up to things and blow themselves up, and they have attacks and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like you have mines that bash things and stuff, right? And sure, it makes sense in some contexts, but I think a cool little change around for that. And they would be distinct from the traps we saw earlier from Jackals, which you interact with by moving close to them and figuring out what they are, but they're unavoidable if you move near them. Whereas these would be things you can shoot and destroy, pylons and the like.
Yeah, there is also one of the reasons that I kind of wanted this as well to be in robots is that there is Robot Legion's terrain out there by OPR. I should have got it out the garage actually before I came, but there is one that is literally a fucking pylon that would already be the model for a Robot Legion totem that you just stick on a 40mm base. Boom, it's in your army. OPR doesn't have to make anything new. Really easily slides in.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so that was it. And it was thinking about how we can have that robotic progression slowly, but they've also they're expanding onto worlds. Yeah, cool fun there. Was the idea.
I think the whole Robot Legion thing here is very like take the theme of their civilization and turn it into board effects, right? So like while spreading sentience might not make sense if you like think, okay, well, why is that robot moving that robot? But they are, as a race, are spreading and creating things, right? So like creating totems and progression and moving forwards and stuff, and it kind of applies then onto the battlefield. And then you just update it to make it make sense, however you want to do that. But it kind of gives them a very clear, like, okay, we are the slow army, but what we do is we push forwards and we build defenses and we push onto the board and get there, right? Which I think is a cool little thing, and like self-repair keeps them durable, and that very like classic image of like Necrons walking forwards and not dying, right? Like a classic slow march.
They're space zombies. That's what these guys kind of are, right? And the fact that they've come in through a different way with the high elf fleets and OPR lore means that they're less on the zombie side, but they're more on this inexorable advance of technology. Divulging from the high elf fleets who are off marauding in space with organic and elemental matter, these guys are metal. And so the ability of having this metal just creeping out throughout the galaxy, really, really cool. And as well, you'd have the spreading sentience interact with totems. So if your totems need to redeploy, you've got your ability to hop near to them and wiggle them a little bit closer.
Yeah, and if you've ever played like Dawn of War, you'll know exactly what it feels like to get rolled by a Necron army who's moving extremely slowly towards you, right? That's what we're trying to capture here.
Yeah, big fun. There's the Robot Legion's pitch. Harvey, perfect, actually, taking you into the lizards. Oh, that was actually even better than planned.
Oh my god, beautiful. So goals here focus on the defensive nature of the Saurian Starhosts and the power of frog mages. So the things that stood out in the lore is that a frog mage leads a star host, right? So they're not just like when we did our Saurian Starhost review, there was a meme list where we put like 3 frog mages inside a Triceratops, right? In lore, that shouldn't be happening, right? There should be one big scary frog mage who's a powerful presence on the board, and he leads his star host, right? And he's a very strong thing. But the big thing about Saurian Starhost is that they're not trying to conquer places. They have a very, very defensive, like prepared for you to come at us style. So what did I do here? I left Predator, kind of similar to the Blessed Sisters thing. I think it's just iconic enough, right? Like I think if you took it away from the players, exactly, and it's a fun mechanic, right? And yes, now it's been spread to Eternal Dynasties and stuff, but I think we can very easily leave it on them still. So the next thing, Frog Mages to tough 9. This does remove their ability to be embedded in units. I get that, but I wanted them to feel more powerful than what they currently do. They're currently 3/3s. Put them back to 2/2s, right? Like these guys should be like they're not like greater demons. They're not like these enormous things, but they are tough 9 2/2s. They head up like fuck shit up, and then give them level 4 casting with a higher caster token cap. So currently caster 4s on the second round you hit 6 tokens, which is the same as a caster 3 or 1. So if you're not casting someone the first turn, it's a bit of a waste. Give them the ability to go up to 8 tokens instead to represent these extremely powerful mages and give them something unique to them. The other thing is double range on all their spells. The way that spells currently work in OPR is there's basically like formats that they stick to. So you will see stuff like 6 hits AP2, has 12-inch range. Make the Saurian Starhost version of spells just have double the range. Just make it their unique thing that they cast from really far away. I just think that's cool. Right. Another thing to just nail down the fact that these spellcasters, they act in a different way. And I think it also kind of plays a little bit on the defensive style, having longer range spells, right? Because they can like hit things further away and don't need to move as much. Then I liked the current split of the 3 species in the game. So you've got geckos, you've got saurians, you've got gators. So just like nail that down a bit more with what they get. So saurians now get a +1 defense when charged and shot at. This is to represent the kind of defensive nature of them, right? Like when they're being attacked, they are more prepared for it. That's who they are as a race. Geckos, I thought the teleport thing is really cool, a really unique thing that geckos can get. Let's just give that to all geckos, right? It's like half rolled out at the moment. Like give it to chameleons, give it to snipers, whatever, right? Just make it a bit more interesting. And then Gators get Supreme Predator. So obviously the whole race has already got Predator, but they get the 5s and 6s explode instead, and gives them that clear identity as like the more aggressive, charging forwards, doing stuff. Whereas the Saurians hold your line, and the Gecko are skirmishers, right? Like it gives them a nice feel. Overall, I mean, we mentioned this in the Saurian Starhost reviews previously, but they're a pretty good faction already, right? They feel nice. Their list is nice. They've got options for lots of things
already.
So they don't need a massive amount of stuff to make them feel really cool. I just thought there was a bit of a disservice being done to Frog Mages, and I thought there was an opportunity to further separate out the 3 species into clear roles. So, Scout, Defender, Aggressor.
Love it. Yeah, no notes on that one. I mean, when I actually first read this, I misread it entirely, and I sat here grumbling for a bit, going, oh, and you pointed out, Dave, I'm talking about the 3 species being separated with these abilities, and I went, sick, wicked sick, love that. It's that aspect of making the special niche guys more special in their niche. And if you want to build all Saurian warriors, go for it. Tough rock, can't move with a caster or 2 behind. That's good fun. Yeah. But frankly, I love Gators. I'd love to play more Gators, and if you made them a little bit more offensive, I'd be more inclined to take them rather than what they are now, which is premium bulk chaff.
Yeah,
it's a bit rude. It's a bit poo-poo, but they are a weird unit. Whereas with this, you'd really give them a bit of scary, supremely predatorial kind of vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And there's already kind of like a rough overlap of different categories already going on.
Yeah.
So, like, if you imagine like a triangle, Gators and Geckos get access to AP4, right?
Yeah.
And like Saurians and Geckos get shooting, right? And then I don't know what the bottom one here would be, but either way, like you can make it so there's also an overlap in playstyle between the 3 things, depending on which way you lean, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, we like Saurian Starhost; they're fun.
They are fun. Soul-Snatcher Cults. I made this a bit of a meme originally. When we were looking at it because of the blurb on the website for their background, but it actually then evolved into a mechanic that I think is quite cool. So the Soul-Snatcher Cults are this society infiltrating faction that influence people in different ways. And the meme mechanic I had was making them all influencers. But Harvey rightly said, stop being a dick. How do we make this sound serious? So the focus here is on their infiltration and their psychic influence, not Instagram influence on other people. How do we do that? We go through the individual units and we find ways of making those a little bit more stand out, but then also put a big kicker over the end. Over all of the army, which I'll cover at the end. Elite Snatchers, let's start with those guys. At the moment, they're just Snatchers-ish. They're a different type, so instead give them rapid ambush here, the ability to ambush in round 1. Bring back in army-wide scout. The 9-inch thing at the moment is kind of cool, it's kind of all right, but you find with the Soul-Snatcher Cults that you can just get a couple of rounds in and realize that my whole army-wide effect was gone in round 1 because it was a bit of deployment up the board. And if I'm not now alpha striking you and turning this into the most aggressive trade fest, I'm going to lose because probably you've got something that applies for 4 rounds and I had something that applied for 0 to a half round. And it's not quite the same with Volcanic Dwarves who need the boost because they're slow and already really good otherwise. With the Soul-Snatcher Cults, you feel the pain. So instead, give them scout back, make it actually something that comes in afterwards.
I think there's different levels to this as well. I think so. Obviously, the current rule is just move 9 inches. I think making it scout again instead, it makes sense. Obviously, the deployment delay thing is quite powerful, so you could make that an optional upgrade as well. So give it base to them all, so they all have that move it 12 inches thing, and then you can upgrade maybe more elite ones to have the like full scout with the delayed deployment, and then obviously the elite snatchers, which have now got a different name, but I think they're called mutant snatchers now. But they used to be called elite snatchers. Then they have the most advanced form of round 1 scout stuff, which is actually round 1 ambush. So you can kind of give that kind of tiering system back to them to make the army units a bit more tiered and a bit more interesting and very clear. Because at the end of the day, it is a cult, right? The whole point is it's a cult, so it's like, you have leadership in cult, which I think would be cool to add.
Yeah, absolutely. Snatcher units get access to mind control. I think we almost saw this fully rolled out in beta and then it was just taken away before it actually pushed to live. bring that back. That was great. That is something that was really that impact of the lore driving the mechanics. These units, the actual Soul Snatchers themselves, can influence you to make a bad decision. And mind control itself as a mechanic is really sweet, well balanced. Yeah. Weaker, I think, in sci-fi because it's a Qual 3 system with loads more fearless than you see in fantasy. So bring it in. You're not going to be denting too many people that way. Give the heroes an optional aura upgrade. This is one I think you put in, Harvey, and I like this. This is the aspect of you are subverting the enemy to not do something. When attacking, the enemy unit must make a quality check to attack back. So
this could be morale, but yeah.
It could be morale.
Yeah.
I'm personally quite opposed to morale-based trigger effects.
Sure, yeah.
But I really like it being quality because I'm opposed to morale because you suddenly face Battle Brothers and your morale-based effects suck.
Yeah.
Make it quality. You're just reducing that fearless point, and suddenly it's a bit more tangible for the Soul Snatchers player who just doesn't have a bad matchup and loses half of their shit.
Yeah, I think also quite thematic, right? Like the whole point of Soul Snatchers is that they're doing bad things to people, but the people are getting on board. Right? That's kind of the whole thing. Like obviously becoming a Soul Snatcher is really bad. Nobody really wants that to happen to them, but it is what's going to happen to them. And so like this idea that, okay, we're attacking you and you're not doing anything about it because you've been subverted by the cult is kind of
exactly. And then this is the thing that was a meme, but Harvey made into a sensible suggestion instead, which is at the beginning of the game, you pick half of the enemy units to be easily influenced. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can have them have a do-nothing buff unless you, the Soul-Snatcher Cults player, have taken optional upgrades for your units. So the units that are ambushing instead may infiltrate by an easily influenced unit. So that's the 1-inch close ambush effect. Casters get +1 to their caster rolls when within 12 inches of an easily influenced unit. Your casters know that they've got somebody there who is actually on their side empowering their casting. And then other units could get the ability to move 6 inches after attacking an easily influenced unit. You're picking units in the enemy army that you want to be a bit more weak than they are strong, and this is the way to get it. And that way you're going to get your punch out of your Soul Snatcher Cults. You're not undermining the entirety of the enemy force, but you're getting these extra bits that just juice your army that bit more.
Yeah, and this is something that basically already exists, or at least it did exist, and I think it still exists, in the kind of marking at the start of the game thing. They used to have that for the Saurians. They'd have their Ripidactyls, who would mark units, and then all the Ripidactyls would gain a bonus against that unit. So similar to that, you mark half the units, and then depending on what unit is, they might have different effects. So infiltrate next to them might be one of them. +1 caster for the casting units, like the Soul Snatchers make it that. I also just thought about one then while you were talking. It'd be really cool if you could an easily influenced unit has to be deployed first. Just not something we've explored here, right? Forcing your opponent to do different deployment patterns. So not choosing where you deploy them, importantly, right? Like not going like, I pick your tough 15 guy and I put him in the fucking corner in difficult terrain.
Yeah.
But going like, okay, well, I'm going to influence how you have to play the game. I imagine it'd be very, very powerful, but like a mechanic that forced him to activate it next could be something that would be so unique and so interesting, potentially very, very powerful. Yeah. And I don't know how well you'd roll against the unit's quality. I don't know. But stuff like that could be a really interesting thing to explore as well. Once per game, pick one unit. Your opponent has to activate that next. You give it a range requirement, whatever. But there's loads of cool different things you could do to make this army feel like it's unique. And I think influencing your opponent and its units is a really cool thing for it to have.
And this is as well to kind of build on that aspect of design space. It's not a design space that's not really explored in OPR, which is understandable because OPR is designed at the moment to be this ultra accessible, translatable game. But I think that you and I both agree, Harvey, that we think that there is so much more design space for OPR to explore in saying, have this be a translatable game from other war games, but here's where we're unique. And it's things like this with the Soul-Snatcher Cults as an idea, the traps and the deployment shenanigans with the Jackals, bringing in extra things with robot legions with unique units, the dwarves with their heroes deploying gold. There are ways that you can really push OPR into its own unique design space, and it doesn't have to be, I've got hyper elite units, I've got hyper chaff, I'm a horde, I'm a monster army.
Yeah. And I think stuff like this can be relative. So obviously we said like reduce the number of markers and tokens in the game. Now it sounds like this is a very, very marker/token heavy thing. But the important thing about easy influence is you'd pick and you put the tokens on your opponent's army list or something, right? You wouldn't need to have that token following the unit around because it's pick once effect and it doesn't ever expire. It stays with the unit the whole time and goes away. So you could either put it on their army list, a little token, you could write it down on your sheet, you could get little pipe cleaners and to put a little halo on top of someone's head, right? Like it's not stuff that needs to bog down the game and be dragged across the board. Which I think is important.
So Harvey, bring us on then to the final army for Grimdark Future, the Demons.
Yeah, so the demon lore. I mean, it's a lot about. So they're like these gods who thought they were unkillable, and then suddenly one of them started dying, and so they all scramble for different ways to cure that problem. Now it's really hard to do with something in game with that, but the important thing is that these guys have matched like warp technology, basically wormhole technology or whatever it is, right? And they don't use ships; they just teleport around and. They have this. They will invade realms through these portals, and their units, importantly, are all fragments of the god. So the god uses a tiny fragment as power, creates a little dude. The little dude runs around, and when he dies, the god gets it back. So what do we do here? So we play. There's obviously immediately, there's this warping technology thing. So we came up with this locust beacon thing. So you place one locust beacon at the start of the game that allows demon ambush, which would be a new keyword, within 3 inches. So demon ambush should just be ambush, but also includes this locust teleport thing. And must be placed within 12 inches of your deployment zone. So you're not placing them on top of your opponents to start the game. You're placing them a certain distance of the board. Unless you're playing the most recent tournament pack, then you can place them 12 inches into their deployment zone. It's mad. But you also have to, and then it also has to be over 9 inches away from opponents if created with a caster token. So this is another bit of design space we wanted to talk about. Wherever this design would end up, it's a cool thing to include. So the idea that you can spend caster tokens for things other than casting. So for example, let's say you've got a caster 3, he has 3 tokens, where normally you'd go like, I cast level 3, I roll it on a 4-up, I get it off. You just say like, okay, you can spend 3 tokens and you just get an effect. And the example here would be creating one of these locust beacons. So you just place it down, it has to be over at 9 inches from an opponent, and maybe within like 6 inches of your hero or 9 inches or whatever it might be. But the point is you can create more of these as the game goes on by trading in a resource, which I think is kind of fun. These locust beacons, they allow this demon ambush within 3 inches, but they also allow your units to go through them with rush actions. So the important thing here is it's not advanced, it's not charge. You can't do something combat style after you get it. Now you'd be able to cast, but whatever. The casters are only on the big guys and whatever. So you just rush and you'd make base-to-base contact with it, and then you basically move your unit to the other side of it, and then it'd be a bit like the transport rule. You could only get a certain distance through it or whatever it might be. Place it within 3 inches, whatever it is. Then in terms of the actual like demon stuff, so keep the current army-wide stuff. I think the demon factions are pretty good at being separate from each other. They have some distinct stuff. There's a lot of like caster 1 and spell conduit and change, and I think they kind of have their little niches now, difficult terrain and the plague ones and that kind of stuff. So very happy with those, and I don't think the units need a lot of change. Heroes, so they currently provide ambush auras. Just switch that over to demon ambush auras. So we're not suggesting putting demon ambush on the whole list again. We're making this a very kind of hero-centered mechanic, so the heroes can place locust beacons. The heroes allow demon ambush on it. And importantly, this is a start of the game effect, which I think has been removed now from the game, but I don't see any reason for it to not exist. Obviously, if you've got an ambush unit, it needs to be a start of the game effect because otherwise they'd have to be on the board to be able to use it, which then ruins the whole point of it. And then the final thing is, so I explained before about how these gods use fragments of their power to create things. I thought it'd be cool to play around with this mechanic here. So it's called Essence Reclamation. When a unit is destroyed, you pick another unit and you basically roll a reanimation check for it, i.e. you roll 1 dice per wound it's taken or model removed, and on a 5-up, you restore that 1 wound or model. So the idea is obviously as your units die, you pick them up and you regurgitate them into other units as the god uses its power to create these things. And kind of plays into the whole demon thing of like being created out of thin air and being removed as they come in and die, which I think is kind of fun.
It's also another way of having this idea of more demons coming from the immaterial onto the battlefield. You've just blasted one unit and suddenly that other unit that you've been attacking is being reinforced with more things just appearing from the immaterial. It doesn't have to always be ambush as the representative for things appearing from another dimension. It can be things like that.
And it just introduces a couple of interesting play decisions as well. You go like, okay, I have a unit of crappy swarms. and my big guy on the other side of the map is fatigued, and I think he might be getting charged, and my opponent's next activation, I'm going to throw those swarms into so they die, and then I'm going to use the regen to bring my guy back up a bit more, right? You know, or your opponent then has to go like, okay, if I kill that, they might regen that, so I want to target that first before I do this regen. And importantly, this is worse than regen because it only applies to things you've already lost. It's not giving you regen on remaining wounds.
It's kind of like Reanimator.
It's reanimation, but once off. So it's not the most powerful thing, but it's still an interesting thing that helps describe how the demons work and is thematic and fluffy. And, you know, that was kind of the idea behind our Don't Think Just Charge Does refluffening.
Yeah. And that rounds out Grimdark Future.
For anyone who didn't see, sorry, Dave's added Age of Fantasy super secret for future videos at the bottom of the screen. Super secret. When did you do that?
For those of you who've made it this far and didn't realize that our backgrounds have changed, my voice has changed. I've been sick for the past 5 days. We actually recorded this in 2 fragments, and when we were doing the first one, I realized that by using this super cool Google, I don't know how to undo it, the thing that merges your pages on Google Docs, I actually then had it just flow straight into our Age of Fantasy notes, and we don't want to spoil that. We really want to know, do you guys give a shit before we record that video? Let us know how you guys feel about the shit that we've discussed here. As we say, let's bring it back to the top. We really like 3.5. This is not a slag fest here. We're not saying you should have done this and blah 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 blah. This is just the ideas and the conversations that we had about like, oh, wouldn't that be sick? Oh, that would be a really cool idea. And we're taking it that step further of actually writing it down and putting it out there into the ether of the universe. Yes. Mostly as well, because by the time you guys see this, depending on when editor Harvey finishes this, hopefully you'll be enjoying some post-festive season food, bit of a coma. You're in that weird blurry space where work is a few days in the future. You don't know when you're finished. You're a bit burnt out of your family times. And what do you need? You need to sit down, paint some minis, and listen to the dulcet tones of 2 random British guys who play way too many war games and video games and things like that, and let you know our thoughts.
Yeah, I think this video originally came from the beta as well, right? Obviously, it's our beta ideas. It's what we would have done with it. And I think what really inspired us to make this video, we actually started to kind of theorize this video a long time ago when we built it up, and you'll see there's a couple of times through the video where we mentioned that, that was the way it was in beta, and so we've written these notes and they're not quite up to date. But it was the excitement of the beta that really drove us to this video, right? It was that feeling of being able to influence the game and kind of like talk about the things we're really passionate about to the game designer. And so that's really the energy that we're trying to convey here, right? Like, it's like, wow, this is such a fun game. What would we have done with it? Because we're so excited by the changes that we're seeing in beta and the things that are happening there. Like, you know, what would that actually look like? What would Don't Think Just Charge Does beta look like? So yeah, we hope you really enjoyed the video. It was an absolute blast to make. Honestly, I don't know how long we actually spent making this video. Obviously, the recording time was 2 hours, but behind the scenes, we've done a lot of chatting about game mechanics and stuff.
This has been going on for ages, yeah.
And actually, traditionally, me and Dave actually quite tend to disagree on game design decisions as well. So it was really, really fun just kind of challenging each other back and forth on the things that we'd put down in this document and finding something that we felt. Oh, a lot, yeah. Like, sometimes it's a matter of me going like, no, that should not be in the game, and Dave going like, fuck you, this is fun. But yeah, it was a super, super fun thought experiment. And yeah, so if you've had any ideas like this yourself, whack them down in the comments, join the Discord, come and discuss stuff. With the new army builder coming out, a lot of this stuff is real, right? Like, you'll be able to build this stuff with the new builder stuff. So if you want any of the ideas and you want to go build your own versions of these lists, then, you know, get in the Discord and we can chat through some sort of ideas we've had and
we
some
also
help and stuff. And
we have guys in the Discord who will come to us and say, hey, I built this army, what are your thoughts? And like, I love that. We are talking about doing community book reviews and deep dives onto what you see in the creator book section of OPR, because it is interesting what you get there. You get some sick mini ranges. Oh my God, we get so hyphy about that. And the actual design of the army books is something I'm really passionate about. I love making these. Let me know. There's like fucking big ego boost. If you want to see one of these designed, give me a shout. Let me know. And if enough of you say the same thing, I'll just do it. I say do it, but like, I'll put the time in, and it'll be really cool fun to do.
Don't Think Just Charge versions of the official lists. I know that Nexus did a very similar thing for his competitive rework, but I think our idea here is these would not be like competitive reworks. These would be fluffy. We think this adds a bit more style to the army.
Exactly. This isn't us
styling.
saying how we do something because we don't think the original's good enough. This is just like, this is us being a bit wonky, and it'd be good fun to do. And of course, when I say I'd do it, I don't do anything without consulting Harvey anyway, so I'd be asking his input, and he'd be doing a fair hand in it as well.
Yeah, through WhatsApp. I wouldn't go anywhere near studio. I would just be on WhatsApp and Discord. Yeah.
Fab. Thank you very much for watching. Happy holidays, merry festive season, happy new year, because we won't see or speak to you until then. Well, we will, because you're in our Discord and we love you people, and it's great to do. If you've made it this far into the video, have we done a comment bomb yet?
We've not done a comment bomb.
We've done a... Let me know
I'll
your
tell you what it is.
on.
This will come out before New Year's Eve, but after Christmas. So why don't you tell us what your wargaming resolutions are for next year, and we're gonna have a read through them.
2026, that'll be
so
good.
Either things that you haven't done, like this year I'm going to paint those unused boxes, or strategic things you've decided about the way you play the game, or whatever it might be. Let us know.
Cheers, everyone. I'm Dave. He's Harvey. We Don't Think Just Charge. Peace.